"I'll take you to that new pub for lunch," she said. "What new pub, Mother?" I said. "You know, the one Mrs. Girling told me about at bingo the other week." Well, if I remembered half of what Mrs. Girling told Mother at bingo, I'd be going on that TV programme. Pointless. "It's supposed to be quite posh and I'm paying," she said. "What's all this in aid of, then?" I said. "You've never been caught shoplifting again, have you?" "Don't be daft," she said. "And it wasn't me that got caught with my hands in another boy's all sorts at the Scouts now, was it?" "Told you before. He told me to help myself to the torpedo in his pocket. Anyway, I've got a bit of liver in for lunch. I was going to do it with some butter beans and a nice Chianti." I would have said fava beans, but Mother knows I can't get them at the co-op. "Well, you can have that tomorrow," she said. "Now go and find a clean cardigan and I'll see if I can't get into a skirt and blouse for a change." I can count on one hand the number of times Mother's worn a skirt and blouse since the advent of the shell suit, so I knew it was something serious. We arrived at the pub car park. There were some nice cars parked there. I dropped Mother off by the door, but her bunions have been playing her up a bit recently, and I popped the Fiesta in a corner so as not to look conspicuous. I caught up with her as she was disposing of a lipstick-covered cigarette butt behind a handily placed potted plant, and we went in. The decor was what I think they call industrial chic. Lots of old metal tables and chairs, a few potted plants and gold candles. "Hello, my dear," Mother said, as we were approached by a young lady with a badge and a figure like a well-made double bed. "Aye," came the reply. Mother raised one of the crooked eyebrows she'd hurriedly drawn on in the car on the way over. The badge said Ida. I wasn't sure whether it was her name or a rather sensible piece of advice, bearing in mind what Mother was wearing at the time. Ida showed us through and seated us at a table, though quite why I'm not sure, because there was nobody else eating in there at the time. There was a waitress over near the bar. She looked about 12, but that might just be me getting old. She had on tight jeans and a polo shirt that hadn't seen the warm side of a steam iron in quite some time. Ida gave us a menu each. A big white clean thing, but with no pictures, so we knew they were going for the higher end of the food and beverage market. "Would you like a drink while you decide?" she said. "2 large glasses of white wine, please," said Mother. I glanced down at the menu and noticed that the price of 2 glasses of wine, I could have gone to Tesco's, bought a whole bottle, and still had enough left over some chocolate peanuts, but I wasn't paying, so I kept quiet. We had a look at the menu. Mother decided on the gammon, with the fried egg, not the tinned pineapple. She doesn't do fancy food. Gammons are a go-to when we go out, despite the fact it plays havoc with the dentures. "I think I'll have something different for a change," I said. "I'll have this Thai green curry with chicken." "Oh, you won't like that," Mother said. "Well, Mother, I've had it before. It's lovely. When have you had Thai green curry with chicken?" "Well, I had it once on a blind date with a chap with a reliant and wandering hands, but that's another coffee morning." With that, the waitress came over with our 2 glasses of overpriced and slightly acidic house wine and took our food order. We didn't bother with a starter. We'd had a few nuts on our porridge that morning. "So, Mother, what have you got to tell me?" I said. "I've booked myself a little holiday," she said. "Malta," she said. "Malta?" I said. "What are you going to Malta for? It's hot in Malta. You had prickly heat in Scarborough last year, and Mrs. Girling comes out in a rash in the sun." Maybe I have remembered some of what Mrs. Girling told Mother after all. "I'm not going with Mrs. Girling," she said. "I'm going with a gentleman friend." Well, I was stunned into silence, and I didn't speak again until the waitress brought our food out. Mother's gammon looked lovely. I, however, was presented with a large bowl with a small mound of rice that had been moulded in a teacup, a tablespoon of grey-green curry, and not enough chicken to fill a British rail sandwich. I looked at it for a moment, then looked up at the girl. "Excuse me," I said. Have you brought me a full adult-sized portion of this? Yes, she said. We don't do a small portion in that. You most certainly do, I said. That's a very small portion. In fact, I've not seen a portion that size that didn't come from a menu headed suitable for our younger diners. Well, she didn't know what to do, so she said, sorry about that, and walked off. Mother was tucking into her gammon. I thought, just don't come running to me when it's stuck under your bottom plate. I picked up my curry. It didn't taste of much. It certainly wasn't the flavour fest I remembered. But then again, my mind was on other things at the time. So, who's this gentleman friend then, I said. It's Mr. Sidebottom, she said, from the bingo. He's been sitting with me and Mrs. Gerling for months. She had her eyes on her for the moment he sat down. But he likes a woman a bit more flexible, and you know she has trouble with her hips. Well, before I could even think about Mrs. Gerling's hips, the waitress came back over and asked that usual rhetorical question. Is everything all right for you? I decided to break with tradition. I looked up at her and I said, well, I can see why you don't have pictures on your menus, and I left it at that. She just looked confused and walked off again. So, Mr. Sidebottom, I said. Mother blushed and adjusted her brow as a distraction. He's just a friend, she said. Well, I knew exactly what just a friend would mean. One too many pina coladas and a damp gusset, but some people had sat down at a nearby table, so I didn't push it. It was two older couples who were exchanging details of their latest ailments without one of them putting their hearing aids in. We were treated to the story of one lady's recent hospital visit while she waved her arms around with the amount of underarm swoop that made me fear for the glasses on her table. So when's this holiday booked for, Mother? I asked. Mr. Sidebottom's picking me up tomorrow, she said. I've just got to throw a few things in a bag when I get back. Tomorrow? Are you only going for the weekend then? I said. Oh no, love. There was a special offer on, pay for 3 weeks, get the 4th free. Mr. Sidebottom said just bring the essentials and he'd take care of everything else. Well, I was aghast. And I finished off what little there was of my curry in silence while Mother avoided my gaze. As soon as Mother put a knife and fork down, the waitress was back over, whipping away our plates with a cheery, would you like anything for dessert? I glared at her. I don't think I could bear another disappointment, I said. I'm going to go home and have a cup of tea and an Eccles cake. It was obvious from the look on her face she didn't know what an Eccles cake was, so she shrugged her shoulders and I rolled my eyes. Now, Mother, do you really think it's a good idea going away for 4 weeks with a man you barely know? We don't know anything about him or his intentions. Mr. Sidebottom's a widower. Financially secure and still virile, she said, with a good supply of those Niagara pills. Viagra, I said, rather too loudly as the two older couples on the other table looked over with more than a passing interest. I closed my eyes and did some deep breathing while the burning shame passed. It was a technique I'd been taught once by a therapist after a particularly stressful incident involving a picture of Simon Cowell and a king-size Mars bar. When I opened my eyes, I finished what there was of my wine. I think we should go now, Mother, I said. The waitress was behind the bar, so we went over to ask for our bill. Again, she said, was everything all right for you? No, it wasn't, I said. It was very disappointing. That curry was bland, grey, and a very small portion. Suddenly, an image of this Mr. Sidebottom formed. Bland, grey, and a very small portion. I looked to the waitress. She's not very appetising, that one, is it? She said. I looked at Mother. No, it's not very appetising at all.